Now enjoy this fun photo collage of some of your favorite stars and politicians who speak about the need to reduce our carbon footprint, but who are always on private planes. That's right, all of them. If you don't see a celebrity's picture here, it's because we weren't allowed to use it. Or their series got canceled.
So Bill Maher just did something Hollywood almost never dares to do. He called out his own crowd. And honestly, it was one of the boldest and funniest things he's ever done. Picture it. Maher on stage, serious-faced, giving a confession that leaves the audience unsure whether to laugh or cringe. "My name is Bill," he says, pausing for effect, "and I fly private." The crowd bursts into laughter and applause because deep down, they already know where this is going. It wasn't just a punchline, it was a mirror. One that reflects every eco-preaching celebrity, every green politician, and every Hollywood star who talks about saving Earth but refuses to give up their private jets. And Maher didn't stop there. He doubled down, saying what everyone's been thinking for years. Sure, they talk about caring for the planet, making emotional speeches about saving nature at award shows. But when it's time to live by their words, suddenly there's a work emergency that requires a Gulfstream G700. You know the type. Mansions in Malibu, Aspen, and maybe a cozy beach home in Hawaii, while lecturing everyone else about carbon footprints. They sip oat milk lattes from reusable cups, but burn enough jet fuel on a weekend to power a small city. Maher nailed it with that photo collage moment, telling viewers to enjoy pictures of stars and politicians who preach about emissions but always fly private. "That's right, all of them," he said. "If someone's missing, it's because we couldn't use their photo, or their show got canceled." Brutal. And that's why this bit hit so hard. It wasn't just comedy, it was truth. These people love looking good, but they live like environmental villains. For them, saving Earth isn't about action. It's about image, likes, and headlines. Let's be honest, this isn't about saving the planet. It's about saving their reputation.
Humans are not good people. It's just not in us, including me. And I'm tired of living well, not a lie, but it's also something I never mention, but it's a new year, and I'd like to come clean. My name is Bill. And I fly private. And so does every other person who calls themselves an environmentalist who can.
Maher even threw Bernie Sanders into the spotlight, the so-called man of the people. The irony was thick. There he was, surrounded by Hollywood's elite, nodding along to climate talk between sips of imported champagne. You couldn't script a better scene. And Maher's message couldn't be clearer. Every supposed environmentalist in Hollywood and Washington lives by the same rule. We must stop releasing carbon into the air, except when I need to travel somewhere.
All the environmentalists of Hollywood and Washington do it. Their position on climate change is, we must do more to stop pouring carbon into the air, except for me when I want to go somewhere and then I take a private jet.
And then it got even better. Maher pointed out that nearly every celebrity he mocked is a loyal Democrat. The same people always shouting about environmental justice, climate reform, and sustainability. We've heard it for decades, from red carpets to political rallies to late-night social media rants. But after all that noise, what's really changed? Nothing. Emissions are still up, the planet's still heating, and the only things rising are their hypocrisy and frequent flyer points. Maher dropped the most honest truth of all. There are two types of people in the world, those who fly private and those who would if they could. And that's real. Because let's face it, we all know private jets harm the planet. But if someone handed you the keys to one tomorrow, you'd probably take off too.
Turns out there is one thing in this world that is completely impossible to resist, and this is it. It's like heroin. If you do it once, you'll never stop. There are two kinds of people in the world, those who fly private and those who would if they could.
No TSA lines, no crying kids, no cramped middle seats, no frozen chicken on a tray, just calm skies, quiet cabins, and champagne at 30,000 feet. Once you've experienced that kind of comfort, it's hard to go back. Maher even admitted it himself. He's been flying private for years, mostly because of his schedule. He'd finish his show around 8 p.m., then still make it to a comedy gig in Vegas by 10. Try doing that on Southwest, but here's what stood out. Maher didn't excuse himself. He called it what it is, hypocrisy. And he owned it.
I can take being a bad environmentalist because almost all of us are, but I can't take being a hypocrite. Now, I always justified renting a plane because I only used it for work and literally could not get to most of my stand-up gigs on time any other way. How do you think I did it all those years? I said goodnight here at 8 p.m. and was on stage in Vegas at 10. But I don't need to do stand-up, like tomorrow night in Albuquerque.
And speaking of contradictions, let's talk about Greta Thunberg. Maher actually gave her rare praise, saying she's one of the few who truly lives her values. And for once, he's right. Say what you want about Greta. Maybe she's intense or loves attention. But at least she follows her own message. She refuses to fly. She travels by train and even crossed the Atlantic by boat to avoid flying. That's real commitment. Meanwhile, her celebrity fans jet off to climate conferences in Dubai, posting selfies about sustainability. Because nothing says eco-warrior like flying 6,000 miles for a one-day event on cutting emissions. Maher even joked that the only people who really practice what they preach are Greta Thunberg and Ed Begley Jr. And that's why you never see her smiling. Harsh but fair.
A third category, those who could but do not, does not exist. Except for Ed Begley and Greta Thunberg. And that's why you never see a picture of her smiling. Ed and Greta, that's who walks the walk. Everyone else is full of and I'm done being.
Then Maher shifted gears and went deeper. This wasn't just a roast, it was a full breakdown of moral hypocrisy. He pointed right at the Democratic Party, saying, "This is what you've become. A group more focused on looking good than being real. That's the issue. Modern politics has turned into a performance. The left loves showing moral superiority, wrapping every cause in hashtags and fake virtue. But behind the polished words is emptiness. No conviction, no consistency, just scripted lines meant to please everyone. It's like watching actors play roles, pretending to care while doing nothing. And if you think younger people are any better, Maher would say, think again." He roasted them too, calling them not better, just poorer. That line alone deserved a standing ovation.
Outside of heads of state, almost everyone else could fly commercial. Why don't they? Ask anyone who tried to get home for Christmas last year. And don't tell me the younger generation is better. They're not. They're just poorer. They're actually worse. This is who they look up to. The family where everyone has their own private jet. And kids love Bitcoin, which, to determine the value of, takes an amount of computer processing that uses more electricity than some whole countries. Kids could have rejected that, but they didn't. They love it. Why? Because they want to be rich. Why? So they can fly.
Because he's right. This generation loves talking about being eco-friendly, but most of it comes from circumstance, not principle. Of course, you're saving the planet when you can't afford a car. Of course, you're against private jets when you can barely buy a budget ticket. Give these same people money and fame, and they do the same thing. Maher's point? A lot of activism is just being broke disguised as being woke. And then came the knockout punch. He called out John Kerry, America's climate envoy, for using private jets while promoting sustainability. Seriously, you can't invent irony that sharp. The man in charge of cutting emissions flies private to climate meetings. Maher joked, "If hypocrisy could power TED Talks, we wouldn't need coal." That's the kind of line that makes you laugh and wince at the same time.
No one can resist it. John Kerry is our climate czar, and he uses a private jet. It's like if the Secretary of Homeland Security smuggled drugs in his butt. People take jets to environmental conferences. If you could run TED Talks on hypocrisy, you wouldn't need coal.
And here's the crazy part. He's not wrong. The hypocrisy runs so deep it's almost government policy now. The people lecturing us about pollution are the ones creating most of it. They tell regular people to drive less, travel less, and eat bugs, while they enjoy steak tartare at 40,000 feet. Maher even joked that he's done his share. He never had kids. The only thing worse for the planet than private jets, he said, is children, because they have kids too. Classic Maher, sharp, honest, and self-aware. He bragged about buying the first Prius in 2001 when owning one made you look like you lost a bet. It looked like a Tylenol capsule, he said, and the valets parking it drove better cars than me. He even bought one of the first Teslas in 2010, though he admitted it wasn't great. Still, he tried to set an example, hoping others would follow. Spoiler, they didn't.
Sorry, not sorry. I tried to do my part for the environment. I never had kids. The one thing worse for the planet than private jets. It's true, because then they have kids. I had the first generation Prius in 2001. It looked like a Tylenol gel cap. I was always handing my keys to valets who were driving a better car than me. I had the first Tesla in 2010, and honestly, both these cars sucked. The Tesla came up to about here on me. If I had a on, I couldn't fit in this thing.
In 2021, about 80% of all new cars sold weren't electric, or even hybrid. They were trucks and SUVs. That's what people really want. Maher dropped a shocking stat. Back in 1973, coal made up 38% of the world's power. After nearly 50 years of activism, billions in funding, and countless climate promises, that number only dropped to 37%, just 1%. 5 decades of speeches, protests, and summits, and we barely moved the needle. Oh, and those blue recycling bins we're so proud of? Only 5% of plastic actually gets recycled. The rest ends up piled somewhere out of sight while we pat ourselves on the back. That's the truth Maher was exposing. Humans love to talk about being good, but when it comes to actually changing our habits, we choose convenience. We want to feel virtuous without any sacrifice.
But both times, I said to myself, okay, I'll take one for the team, because I have a platform, so I'll do the right thing, and then everybody will follow, people will... Nobody followed. In 2021, 80% of new vehicles weren't electric, weren't even hybrid. They weren't even cars. They were SUVs and trucks. That's what people want. In 1973, the share of global electricity generated by coal was 38%. You know what it was 46 years later in 2019, after all the talk and all the trying? 37%. You know what percentage of plastic gets recycled? 5%. Those blue bins that are everywhere, they're not full of bottles, they're full.
We'll hashtag Shesh Save the Planet from our iPhones built with mined lithium. We'll condemn fossil fuels while streaming Netflix for hours. We'll shame someone for using a plastic straw, then hop on a 3,000-mile flight for a weekend trip. And that's the problem. Everyone wants change, just not personal change. Maher wasn't lying when he said humans aren't naturally good people. We crave comfort, not conscience. Until we accept that truth, all our talk about saving Earth is just noise, empty words echoing in a warming world. That's why this monologue hit so hard. Maher didn't just mock hypocrisy, he owned his own. He said what everyone else hides. And that rare honesty is exactly what Hollywood and Washington lack. Because in the end, it's not about perfection, it's about truth. Maher's not saying we shouldn't care about Earth. He's saying stop pretending to be better than you are. Stop preaching one thing and living another. That's what made this bit powerful. It was funny but also raw and real. So here's the point. Before you clap for the next celebrity lecture on sustainability, ask yourself, how did they get there? Probably not in coach. Maher said what most people are scared to admit. The environmental movement has turned into a performance for applause. Until people start living their message, nothing will change. Because saving the planet isn't a trend, it's a sacrifice. And Hollywood isn't ready for that. But what do you think? Was Maher right to expose them, or is he just another hypocrite? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, subscribe for more, and share this with someone who still thinks celebrities are saving Earth. Spoiler, they're not. As Maher showed, the only thing greener than their slogans is the envy they feel when someone else's jet takes off first.